an open platform for you to express your success and happiness. This is Minutes of Greatness Podcast with David and Mark.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 5 of Minutes of Greatness Podcast with your hosts, Mark and David. And today we've got on a fantastic guest, a fellow Cork man, Conor O Keeffe. Just so for Conor, anyone tuning in who may not know who you are, just a brief introduction. Who is Conor O Keeffe and what does he do?
Conor O Keeffe is a 29-year-old ultramarathon runner, mindset speaker, mountaineer, mental health advocate, Cork man. That's probably the easiest way for me to describe myself.
A pure Cork man.
Absolutely.
But I didn't mention this before we hopped on, but I actually seen you speak before, Conor, in CIG.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. So the Silly Heads held a convention in the
Yes,
theatre at CIG.
absolutely.
And I was there, and that was my first time actually coming into contact with you. And I kind of kept an eye on you kind of since, because you had a great story to tell, and you've gone from strength to strength. And I suppose, do you want to just give us a little insight into how you got into speaking and mindset?
To be honest, it was like many other aspects of my life, it completely came by accident, really, or I stumbled upon it at least. I was just asked at one point, somebody who followed me on Instagram said, "Hey, look, would you put a talk on for us in our gym?" So my first talk was in a gym back in 2019. And it was, you know, we were still obviously able to meet and all this kind of stuff at that time. So it was like first time speaking in front of a group of people. And I basically just told my story and told people, you know, how I had kind of failed time and time again to kind of live the life that I wanted to live, and how I was, I suppose, succeeding now, and or at least that I was, you know, going through the daily challenges that lead to success, you know. So that's how I got into speaking. And then from there, I just got more jobs from there. And I don't think I've ever really, you know, quote unquote, advertised that I'm a speaker, you know, really.
Yeah.
It's just been one of those things where I've never gone a month without doing talks, you know, so it's been great.
Brilliant.
You were like, I know you a while now, Conor, and you know, like, especially when you were training the Kingsley and stuff like that at the time, you were just the way that even you were training, let's say, was different. You know, you had your head screwed on. You knew every single step in a way. If that's what it kind of looked like, if that made sense. So, from day one, you know, you always stuck out, and that I know, you know, and that's a very good thing. It's a very difficult thing to do. It's a very uncomfortable thing to do. I always felt like that you stuck out in a positive way, that, you know, oh, that's Conor, if that made sense, you know. So like, you had a massive influence on me, to be honest, as well. I loved the stuff you were doing. Like, I know who I at the time I was talking to, and we were saying, like, I don't know how he does the runs. How the fuck does he run that long? We were saying, and
yeah.
I was just like, they were intrigued on how you were able to go that much. I was so intrigued by your mindset and the way that you were able to push through any type of wall, and just the way of your mindset. You know, I kept calling you for a while the Irish version of David Goggins. You know, not gonna lie, like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a good way to think.
I think I'm a bit more cracked than David Goggins.
A bit more cracked.
I think David Goggins can kind of, yeah, he can kind of suck the crack out of running 200 miles very quickly, like, you know. So I like to just inject a bit of humor, a bit of fun, do you know what I mean, into it, because, like, you know, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, if you can deliver it to people in a way where people are like, yeah, do you know what, that's kind of cool. Definitely. Then, you know, I wanted to make ultramarathon cool, you know what I mean? Not something that, like, mad fuckers do, you know. It's like something that, like, you know, if you want to just do it, like, and really, you know, push it. If you want to push it and go to there, like, you know, it's for everybody, you know what I mean? And I don't think we should be placing it on a pedestal here, like, you know. I think it's, you know, let's open the doors to everything. And ultra is different for everybody as well, you know. It's like, an ultra marathon to me is 100 or 200 miles, but an ultra to somebody else is finding that within themselves to get on the road in the first place.
In the first place.
That ultra in their mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They'll place their own limitations, their own barriers, their own walls that they have to get over. You know what I mean? They'll place all of them up for themselves. That'll be much longer and wider than 200 miles. You know what I mean? So it's about it starts inside the head first, and then it goes out into the road.
It's just starting off with one of our first questions there, right? So, like you said that an ultra it's not pointed at 200 miles. It's not pointed at that. It's that massive amount of run or that push that you first start off with in a case like that, right? So, like, if you were able to look back on the way when you started your mindset, your motivating speaking and kind of overall your agility and all this, what would be the one thing that you would change, if that makes sense, for the better, that you think you've done wrong in the past, that would have made you, if you knew something now, would have made you better now?
I don't have any regrets, to be honest. Really, like, I think that everything that has happened in this time, good or bad, like, really was meant to happen, you know. And so, like, we have our setbacks and we have things that, you know, our failures, you know what I mean? And exactly. we do fall flat sometimes, but I've absolutely nothing that I would change, nothing at all. Like, you know, every mistake that I've made has been a fantastic area for me to learn, you know, and for me to grow from. So even the setbacks that were out of my control, like Project 32 being cancelled and postponed, had again forced me to look more inwardly and, you know, I suppose look at the motives behind Project 32 and it's like, what the fuck, why the fuck do you actually want to do it? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Why do you want to do it? And really look into it. It's like, not just because I know that I'm capable of pushing myself in that way, but more so that I seek that from myself. And it's personal to me. It's nobody else is going to fully get why I do these things or why I want to do them. And then also being able to, you know, sit back from, you know, my thoughts behind Project 32 and see, okay, well, look, is there an opportunity in the setback here? You know, and I've often thought about setbacks that I've had in my personal life or in, you know, my external life, where it be COVID or whatever the case may be. Yeah. I've always tried to look at those and say, what benefit can we harvest for ourselves, you know, within this time? And I wouldn't be living in the Wicklow Mountains with my girlfriend now if it wasn't for COVID. Like, you know, there's no way, you know. I'd have been probably still living with my folks in Cork, you know, just living the same life that I've been living for so long. But no, it was like, it's time to like push out the boundaries of what I think is, you know, my life. You know what I mean? And now that I'm here now, and I have, like, what's good about these things and these freedoms is that there's something to lose. There's something to lose, and you have to work to keep the thing that you want. And all I'm focused on right now is just keeping the life that I've been able to build throughout these times when people are, when our lives are stripped of structure and stripped of control. It's time for us to inject our own structure and our own control 100%. Into our lives, like, you know, and that starts in there, and then it manifests into the outside. You know, it manifests into the outside world. So I really feel like I am my own perception of my life. If my own perceptions of my life are good and my own perceptions of my life are hopeful and filled with opportunity and prosperity, then that's what happens in my life. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the way that I have looked at this. I've never had any regret.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. So, like, it's like almost like a manifestation of your positive thoughts and mindset. It kind of almost translates into the physical being itself, like.
Yeah, leaked out into my life, you know. And I think that's the step that some people do miss sometimes. And what I missed for years was that it wasn't going to be something on the external. There wasn't going to be, like, me moving to Wicklow to get happiness would have never worked. But that, you know, me moving to Wicklow was a physical representation of what I felt in my mind, and this happiness and this thirst for exploration within myself and within the world manifested itself into the real life moving to the Wicklow Mountains. You know what I'm saying? I think people put the cart before the horse sometimes, and they're like, okay, I'm going to move here, and this is going to give me fulfillment and meaning.
Yeah.
When I had fulfillment and meaning way before I moved here. And I think that was the mistake I was making for an awful long time. And a mistake I'm glad I made, because you can't really learn the right way of doing something unless you fuck up sometimes. You know what I mean? And I think that's I think what I've learned the most from really is like, okay, let's start here first. Let's start with Conor. Let's start what is he feeling? What does he, what's he yearning for? What's he missing? A lot of the time is what needs to be met here. You know what I mean? And when I figured that out, and I figured out myself, and I suppose what's within the four corners of my mind, then it was able to go into the external world, exactly as you said.
Gotcha.
Brilliant stuff. And like, you obviously, we know a fair bit about you, and we've done a bit of due diligence before you came on.
Been stalking you.
And
yeah,
we fucking know where you live.
we know everything about you. But no, in all seriousness, though, like you have a serious pedigree. Just throughout your entire life, like from a young age, and like you have a background in taekwondo, you have a background in Muay Thai, and like you said, you're mountaineering, you're ultra marathon running and stuff like that. So I suppose, like, to get to the level, like you were, am I correct in saying you were a European champion at taekwondo?
Yeah, it's at one point in time I was, when I was 16.
Yeah, so and I seen you also at a very young age were fighting for Irish titles in Muay Thai and climbing mountains at a very young age at 17. So like, you must have had a solid foundation of a mindset from a young age, or had you? I could, correct me if I'm wrong. Like to be almost at elite level at those kind of things from a teen to now, like, or has there been much change?
I think, to be honest with you, Mark, right, like where I have looked at that, in terms of my history, or in terms of where I stood, I definitely think that I gave myself such a hard time as a young fella, such a hard time, that like the external world wasn't able to dish up the type of punishment that I was able to dish up to myself. No, I gave myself such a hard time that it maybe drove me to be able to stick out certain things that people couldn't, because I could stick out my own mind, you know what I mean? I could stick out what I was actually saying to myself, you know what I mean? So if I'm going through that kind of, internal battle with myself, the external battles just didn't seem as powerful, it didn't seem as powerful. And so now that I have built that from within my life, and know that I am my own best mate, and I'm like talking to myself in the way that we can do whatever the fuck we want to do, I feel like now it's like, when I came to the end of the 200-mile race, which I never thought I was going to finish, to be honest with you, it's not that I didn't believe in myself, it was just that I never had an expectation. I attached an expectation to it. I just knew that I was going to be on the start line, and not necessarily finish line. The more I thought about it, though, I thought, well, like, of course you're going to finish it. Like, you know what I mean? Of course you're going to finish it. Like, you could take that double over, you know what I mean? In terms of what I actually was capable of doing. Like, in my mind, I felt like, I could have done more, and that's the kind of mindset that, I suppose I've developed from switching that light of being my own worst enemy, being into my own best friend. So I think that, being my own worst enemy drove me, I think, to succeed in certain areas. I suppose it set a standard for me, and I needed to meet that standard. I held myself to a higher standard than my peers, than everybody else, than every other 17-year-old lad in my school. I held myself at a higher standard than him, and that was how that's how it started. And I still hold myself to a very high standard, but I'm far more compassionate with myself. I know, you know what I mean? I'm not going to fucking be hard on myself now if things aren't going my way, you know what I mean? But I think that it started from a young age.
But even with that, like you're saying, at a young age, you were very strict on yourself, and that you had that urge of pushing yourself a bit more than usual, than a normal person would. If someone's even in the eyes of like creating a business, you have to have that consistency and that strictness within yourself. Whether it's a business or you're looking to if you're a fighter, you have to have that mindset, because if you don't, in a way, I'm almost feeling like that if you can't think outside the box, you're fucked from the beginning. Your foundation is you're a copycat, if that makes sense. What I feel is that for someone to really, really succeed within themselves and to be happy within themselves, they have to be comfortable at all times to be uncomfortable. So if that makes sense.
I feel like it's really linear with me. I'm like, effort in my life is freedom to me. You know, if I put effort into my life, whatever that may be, whether it's cleaning up the house, making the dinner, going out for a walk in the mornings, or doing these things, hopping into the river to for some sort of cryotherapy for my body, or whatever the case may be. Those things are what really give me the freedom to live my life in whatever way, shape, or form I want to do it, is actually like putting the effort into it. And I think that's in some way what I was missing for a long time in my life, was that ability to kind of say, okay, I was working, and I was doing my job and stuff, but like I wasn't really putting effort into my life. I wasn't putting effort into, actually making my life a fulfilling and meaningful one. So there was no real reason why I would have fulfillment and meaning in my life. So I really feel like effort and whatever form or shape that takes is going to give people a lot of freedom within their lives, within themselves, within their own minds. So like, it's whatever goal you have. I have multiple goals, and I have things that pop into my head, business ideas that pop in and out of my head and float around the place, and some of them might never see the light of day, but I definitely put the effort into making the things that I want to happen. And that's what all I can say to people, is that it just takes effort. And where I sat with that for a long time was, my effort was like a gun spraying out everywhere. It didn't have any focus, and it didn't have any, general direction of where it was going to go. So when I was able to actually pinpoint where I actually needed to be, putting my efforts into, that's when I started to kind of see changes within just my structure of my day to day.
Very good.
Very good. And I suppose, like, you have like that, like you have that rock solid mindset, and like you said, you had it from a young age, and I suppose you almost empowered yourself even more when you learned to kind of turn it from I'm my biggest critic to I'm my biggest motivation, in a sense. Has there been any external people who've motivated you along the way that you would like to kind of mention that helped you get to where you are?
Yeah, I think my parents did, both of them, in two very, very different ways. Like, I definitely think that in my younger years, especially, I was doing an awful lot of things to prove to my dad that I could do it, and prove to my father that I was able to do these things. And that's kind of, I suppose, where I think a lot of lads and maybe girls as well will fit into it, that they want to, impress them, and they want to, my father was a soldier with almost 40 years. And so he kind of had that, he was, telling me all the stories about Ranger lads in the Ranger wing and all these things. And my eyes were just lighting up with all of the things that he was talking about. Like, so when I was, I was always holding myself to that standard then, unbeknownst to myself. I was holding myself up to like special forces standards of what I was going to actually be, what I was going to be willing to go through. You know what I mean? What I was willing to go through to get something done. And then in my later life, I really saw a real admiration and a real respect for my mother, who completely changed her life, really, in her 50s, where we say, like, it's never too late to change. It really isn't. And I think that my mother allowed herself she retrained as a psychotherapist, and she really opened herself up to the prospect of like real hurt and real, trauma, and different things being brought to light about herself, about her past, about everything. And she has grown through it and has found meaning in it and found purpose in it, and has really showed me that, it starts from within, that any journey, whether it's, you want to be an entrepreneur, or you want to be a boxer, or you want to be a runner, or you want to do anything like that in the external world, it comes from within you. If you're seeking the world to come there and answer your questions for you, you're not going to get them. You're not going to get the right ones anyway. You have to ask yourself the right questions. And so when I look at my mother, I see this person who wasn't limited by age, wasn't limited by, you know, the life that she had gone through, really open to questioning herself. And like, it's very much fed into a lot of my mindset as well. And why my podcast is called Flip the Script is because I've seen that woman flip so many scripts about herself and about her own life, and, you know, and has really infiltrated parts of my life, and has kind of made me think, okay, well, look, you know, is this actually the way we feel about something, or are we putting up this guard? Are we putting up this wall of ego that's protecting ourselves from what's really going on? And asking that question is a great freedom. It's a great challenge as well for yourself, because you have to get there first. You have to get to that point where you can actually be sometimes really, you know, dig really deep. And I think I talked about this on my podcast a number of weeks ago about the ego self and the authentic self and the differences between the two of them. The ego self being the person who wants to project outwardly. He wants to blame everybody for everything else that's happening in his life. He doesn't want to take shoulder any fucking blame or responsibility for anything. So, you know, he's pointing at his girlfriend saying, you're the reason why I'm insecure. The things you're doing is making me insecure, and that's why, and how dare you make me feel insecure, because I'm not insecure. You're pulling those things out of me, and that's that.
Make me feeling, yeah.
Whereas the authentic self is just like, comes in, doesn't really necessarily care about your feelings. He cares about truth. He cares about growth. He cares about honesty. And he comes in and says, well, look, if you're feeling this way in this relationship and the same in the last 3 relationships, what's the common link here?
Yeah.
You know,
you, my friend, it's you.
the common link is you. And that's the authentic self. And what the authentic self will put out of you is, Conor or whoever, you are insecure. And that's okay. You know what I mean? It's not like something to go, you know, to be like, to say, you know, it's not a thing where we just curl up in a ball and just, you know, be insecure for the rest of our lives in the knowledge that we're insecure. It's right. Let's see how we can actually move forward from it. Let's see how we can actually, you know, how we can actually use this same authentic self, this same logic, this same reality to bring ourselves into a better mind state, into a place where we're more comfortable with talking about these things. And the first thing was listening to the authentic self in the first place, saying, look, we actually are insecure and we could actually do a bit of work on that. And I'm willing to put it in. Are you? And I had to kind of answer the question, you know what I mean? Yeah, I am, you know, and these things that, like, those are the things that I brought from my mother's side of it. Because my father is a, you know, yes sir, no sir, absolute, you know, there is no feelings.
Where was your dad based, Conor? What army? What barracks?
He was in Collins Barracks, but like for a lot of the time, especially in my adult life, he spent it abroad. He was in Lebanon about 5 or 6 times for about.
Ask your no, he definitely knows. So ask your dad. Does he know Michael Feehan? My granddad would have been
Michael
a sergeant.
Yeah, he probably does. He's been in there since the mid '80s. So like he was there for a long time. And he lived in Kosovo for 18 months. He's lived away for quite a lot of the time, actually, especially in my later life. And that's I got a kind of a more of a stoicism from my father, where it's like, you know, we're going to move forward. You know, things are going to hit us, and it's okay. And we're going to fucking take the slings and arrows. We're going to fall down sometimes. We're going to get up. We're going to dust ourselves off, and we're going to be fine. Whereas my mother is a real, let's sit down and see what cuts we have, and let's see if we can dig deeper and see if we can find out where they're coming from. You know what I mean? And that's, and I got the 2 opposite sides of that. And that's combining the 2 of them. They're the people that I really do, you know, take inspiration from, and have, you know, move forward with them in my life. And it just so happened that they were in my house for 29 years, you know?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Like you said, like it's almost as if you could pull the best parts of both and attribute them to yourself then, like.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. And it's a good solid foundation that you've had to create the person that you are today as well. Like just with all the things that you've done, right? So like you've been able to adapt yourself to failure, to understand that failure is also a very beneficial thing to have, because it shows you where you need to start again and create a better pathway, if that makes sense. How can someone that will be listening to the podcast today, how can someone start a journey of understanding that failure is not necessarily a negative and bad thing, that it's also a very good positive structure to have in your life, because it's showing you what you're doing wrong and where you can go right from here?
I would say to try, like for me, what I had to do was I had to actually remove myself from the result of whatever it was. So I had to remove whether I was going to be happy or not from the result of anything. So I had to really just sit into, yes, I want to achieve these things. I want to, like for instance, what I'm training for at the moment is the Kerryway Ultra, and I'm setting my sights really high on that. Like I want to set a new course record. I want to win. And, a lot of people that are in the know in the ultra marathon sphere would be like, you're fucking mad, if you think that you're going to be able to do that. But at the same time, I would never shy away from saying it, because I'll say them aloud, because I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of my ambition. I'm not afraid of the failure. I'm not afraid of, having pie in my face at the end of it when I finish 95th. I don't care. I am going to aim for that, and I am going to, I'm going to put my whole entire will towards that. But what we must try and do is remove it's actually strange in a way, because in a certain way we need to remove whether we're going to feel good or bad at the end. So when I, come to like when I came to the end of the Enduro, man, I didn't actually have this euphoric high, this euphoric buzz of just absolutely, it was insane, and I didn't come down for 3 days. I got there and it was kind of like, I don't feel any different. And it was in the best possible way. I didn't feel any different because I was a winner already in my own mind. And I was already, coming to, I was already coming to the point where I was feeling more complete as a person, regardless of what the race was going to be like. And that's what I attach to all these things now. It's not that I don't have ambition. Like I say all the time, I'm joking on my Instagram, like, I'm coming for next. I'm coming for next. I'm coming for, I'm coming for all the big dogs in the ultra sphere. When I was fighting, I wanted to fight the best. Now I'm racing, I want to race the best. And I say that now, and I say it with meaning and with purpose, and with saying, like, I'm gonna give it all, like, and you better come, you better come with your shovel and get into the trenches with me, because I will bring you there. You know what I mean? And that's
exactly.
And if it comes to the point where I fail and I don't get it, it's okay with me, because it doesn't matter whether I win or lose. The result has no bearing really on what I want to do. And I think that's what I have to do, is I just remove the good and the bad. It's just like with every day, with training sessions. When I was Thai boxing, I'd be so down in the dumps if I was getting caught with shots in sparring and I was not feeling good, and I wasn't feeling fit, I wasn't feeling strong in training. I'd feel so shitty. And then if I had a really good session and I was great, I would be buzzing off my socks then for the day, and I'd be absolutely, up in the air. Now, whether my training is one where I'm tired or whether I'm energetic, it's not good or bad. There's no good or bad anymore. It's just training. It's just process.
Taking that emotion away, yeah.
Art. Exactly. I'm taking the result away. I'm taking, like, you finish the run, whether it's good or bad, in any estimation, there is no good or bad. It's just part of it. It's just process. And so when I apply that then to the race itself, I'm far more open to the possibility of a failure. You know what I mean? And knowing that, like, this is all just part of it. Like, you know what I mean? There's no winning or losing. You know what I mean? Oh. The winning or losing is in here. You know what I mean? If you want to do something and you want to go for it, I wouldn't attach anything to the result. Because if you look at the most successful people in the world, if you look at Kobe Bryant, let's say, rest in peace. You look at the way that his mindset was to anything. He was winning games by 26, 30 points at a time, and he still had that face, that determination, that go forward. If he was only worrying about the victory that he knew he was going to have, there's 2 minutes left on the clock and they're up by 26 points. Do you think he'd have a face like that? No.
Exactly not.
It's because he's in the process. He's in the process. He's not in the result. He's not worrying about whether we fail or whether we succeed. He's worrying about the next fucking play. He's worrying about the next time he gets his hands on the ball. And if we can stay in that, that's the only reason why I was able to finish the 200 miler. I wasn't thinking about finishing. You can't think about finishing for 2.5 days straight. You'd fucking kill yourself. You'd just be in bits.
Yeah, that would.
And so
that
was it. Like, you have to stay in the process.
And just to finish the podcast off, I thought it would be good for you to give us one of your best quotes or best ways of expressing getting your mindset right. Just a quick 60-second last finish. Kill it
60-second job. Okay. When you really, really don't want to do something, might just be the perfect time to go do it. Because that's what I have really pulled out of my time when I've, really thought about where I want to go in my life. Is there are multiple times where we're just going to be sitting down on the couch, absolutely half dead, feeling crappy. Our eyes are melted out of our head from being on our phones and our laptops and all these kind of things. And the last thing you're going to want to do is the thing that you really want to do. You really want to do a lot of these things. And, we have the best of intentions for our lives, that we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to do whatever. When you really don't want to go and do something and you feel that and you go against it and you say, I'm going to do it anyway, and now is the perfect time to go do it, you're going to start building a mindset that's just it's coming from within you. It's not, there's nobody pointing the finger at you saying you need to get off the couch. It's you. You're the one who's actually manifesting everything. That's not motivation. That's discipline. That's commitment. That's, understanding self. That's what that is. It's not motivation. That's like, I'm going to watch some motivational video and then I'm going to get up and do jumping jacks. It's, this is coming from within me. This is something that's pulling from within into the outside. And that's what we should be searching for.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was
no worries at all, guys.
That was very concrete. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast as well. Thank you for everything. Thank you for answering all the questions. And again, just even if anyone listening wanted to listen into Conor O Keeffe's podcast, is Flip the Script. It's on Spotify. And what else platforms is it on?
It's on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, most places where you get your podcasts, it'll be there. And the link is in my bio. It's C.O. Keeffe or Co Keeffe, some people call me, whatever way they want to say it. It's C.O. Keeffe, and you can click the link in the bio. It has my Patreon page, and a link to the Spotify for Flip the Script as well.
Flip the Script. Thank you so much, and I hope everyone's enjoyed episode 5. And just make sure you like and subscribe. And thank you, and have a wonderful day.